Hey everybody, welcome back to Leosophy. This is the sixth installment of the Arachnology episode, or series. I'm going to be talking about Europiggy, which is fitting since the last one was about Amblypiggy. And you can kind of tell with the names, Europiggy means tail, or Euro rather means tail, and Piggy means rump. So tailed rump instead of stump rump like last time. And the reason for that is one of the most qualifying characteristics for Europiggy. There's really three to really make note of. And I'll show you a picture. They have a flagellum-like tail at the very, very terminal end of their abdomen, and it's used as both a sensory organ as well as a means of defense, and we'll find more out about that here in a minute. And additionally, the secondary trait is those pincer-like pedipalps. They are very different from the pincer-like organs of pretty much any other animal I've ever seen. With crabs, it's more made. It's used for crushing, but it's more made for picking things up. Scorpions have a very similarly structured pedipalp. Then you look at amblypygids; they have those raptorial-like claws, more similar to the forearms of a praying mantis. These are just primitive looking. They're made for crushing. In some ways, you could say they're made for masticating prey before it gets to the mouth. Very different. And as you can probably infer from that, they are obligate predators. They actually make use of the other notable feature, though the front two legs are used very similar. There's going to be a lot of overlap with Amblypiggy, very similar to the way Amblypiggy and Sulfugidae, which is going to be the next episode, the way that they use their sense organs. So they're more like antennae, and then of course they walk on the other six legs. Now, back to that flagellum, at the base of it are two little glands, and the chief means that these animals, and this is why their common name, a very fitting name, is vinegaroon, is because this is their chief means of defense, really. They can pinch with those pedipalps, but what they do if they're really threatened is they'll raise that flagellum up, that whip up, and they will spray acetic acid, which is just vinegar. I mean, that's what vinegar is. Vinegar is a combination of water and acetic acid and a few other polyphenols. This is just concentrated acetic acid. Concentrated enough, in fact, that if it gets on your skin, it can irritate it, and if it gets in your eyes, it will sting quite a bit. Of course, the same could be said about regular vinegar, but that's one of the most notable things about the vinegaroon, hence the common name. And it also has that characteristic pickle smell, which is why, because they're not very harmful, they're becoming more popular in the pet trade, and you're seeing pickle-related puns for a lot of their names. They also reproduce very similarly to scorpions. Physiologically, there's a lot of overlap there. You can see a lot in common with a scorpion. They've got the longer cephalothorax. Then when you get to the abdomen, though, it looks like a primitive spider. And if you compare the Europygids to the Amblypygids to the Sulfugids, a lot of overlap there. You can see a lot of evolutionary correlation. I'm trying to think of a better word for it. You can see that even though they've all three diverged from one another for millions of years, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They have a lot in common. They have the two elongated front legs. Of course, with Amblypygids, they've become a lot more specialized and ornate and massive and fragile looking, whereas with Sulfugids and vinegaroons, you see the back and forth tip, tap, 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 more similar to the way the antenna functions on an insect. So, yeah, a lot in common with Sulfugids and Amblypygids, a lot of interesting overlap. And if you look at the abdomen of Sulfugids, Amblypygids, and Europygids, looks like a primitive spider. If you look at some of the oldest spiders, I know I said this in the last video, but it's worth repeating because the same thing applies to Europygids, to vinegaroons. It looks like the most ancient, primitive spiders that we have currently alive on Earth. So just interesting stuff. As for The overall behavior, the mating is very similar to a scorpion, and then the female goes into a den, and she doesn't come out for some time. Very similar behavior actually when they are getting ready to molt, and then when she does emerge, she's got pale white babies on her back, very similar to scorpions. So yeah, I'm trying to think of what all else is notable about vinegaroons. They're some of the oldest discovered arachnids. Linnaeus himself named them. I can't remember what, and that's another thing. Taxonomically, man, they have gone through so many name changes. In fact, it was Thelephonidae until like 15 years ago, and then they just merged it with Europygy because I guess genetically they realized that it wasn't several families; they were all closely related enough to just create a single class for them. Yeah, or order rather. So let's see. Talked about their eating habits. Oh, as you can probably imagine, based on the tappers of their first front legs, not great eyesight. Terrible eyesight. Most arachnids are this way. In fact, I would go so far as to say it's actually more surprising that more spiders don't use their front legs as sensory organs, given how common it seems to be among arachnids. That being said, because they do produce silk and it can amplify those senses, that's probably the chief reason why they're able to do that, able to use all 8 legs for walking instead of using them as sensory appendages. Plus, they also use their pedipalps as sensory appendages, whereas Europygids, they have to rely entirely on them as a means of grabbing their prey, sort of masticating them. And similarly, if you look at the chelicerae, it's a bit surprising. You would think that given how scorpion-like they are and how primitive they are, that their chelicerae would be more chewing than piercing, but actually they're really similar. They don't use venom, they don't use the digestive enzymes that spiders do, but if you look at the chelicerae, they are pretty much identical to an amblypig. It's those little teeny tiny fangs that masticate to some degree, but really they rely more on their pedipalps to sort of crush the prey in advance. Yeah, I think that actually covers everything. Yeah, like, share, subscribe, keep asking questions. Bye.